Hello, everyone. This is Aryanna Prasad. I'm here with Ashmere Prasad, and we know it's 7:15, but we're here with Sunday Slate, and we're going to go over that Sunday Slate that we all just enjoyed this weekend. The regular season is finally over, and the playoffs are on the horizon, but we still have a lot to talk about this week. So, Ashmere, how are you feeling about the end of the regular season?
First, I think since we've been asked this twice in the last 3 days, we're not related. Okay. I feel like I should just say that. We met on the internet, and Prasad is a common last name. So, for any new viewers out there, just letting you know on the South Asian 411, I'm surprised that we've made it this far in the NFL. No canceled games, a bunch of gypped rescheduled games, and some people playing without a quarterback. I think this NFL season is one for the books, and I'm excited for this weekend. I think it's going to be either filled with really high scoring, exciting games like we've seen all year, or it's going to be like a flop forced game as we saw like with Seattle and the Rams, like some weird scores, odd numbers and safeties in the end zone and things like that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I actually was going to tell you that your mic is going out, but I just commented on all the channels, so I'm sorry about that, y'all. But yeah, so we're still new at this. I apologize, but yeah, no, it's been a wild season, and one of our big takeaways from this week, we're doing a double take of things that happened this week. So looking back a little bit at what happened this week, and so one of the biggest headlines, I think, and it's funny for some fans, not for others, but so we saw, I guess, our first tanking in the NFL, our first instance of it, and that was, so obviously the NFC East division, the teams were still competing. Okay, so the Giants won their game against the Cowboys. They still could have won the division if the Eagles won their game against the Washington football team. But the Eagles, if they lost, they would get a better draft spot. So they actually kind of tanked their game. And so the Giants players were really frustrated with them, and Giants fans too. So there's some funny tweets back and forth. But this is from Darius Slayton. So he's a wide receiver with the Giants. And, this is more like it's a meaningful tweet. You play the game to win, point blank, period. J.J. Watt said it best the other day. Outside of how it affects us, this is just disrespectful to the game. And that's the sentiment that a lot of players had. And J.J. Watt spoke about this recently because he's on the Texans. That poor team is suffering. They've lost so much this year. Him and Deshaun Watson are out, just stuck out there. But it did get a little bit funny. So Saquon, can someone make it make sense to me? What is going on? Okay. And then Eli said, you know what? This is why we don't like the Eagles. And I thought it was hilarious because Eagles player Fletcher Cox fired back. We don't like you either. So, yeah, it's really interesting what happened this week.
Yeah, I think all that banter that came towards the Eagles wasn't really banter. I guess all the smack talking was bound to happen. And it was because of the way that they played, the importance of the game for any Giants fans, the importance of the game for the entire East. And I think all of those tweets really showed true. And I loved that Eli Manning had tweeted and an Eagles player had replied because it's just it's kind of giving the NFL like that NBA vibe, like smack talking is allowed and you could just totally speak your piece, because I think too much is taken on the field. That's just my personal opinion. I think there's too many. You can't really mess around and be a competitive person. You get a flag, you get a 10-yard, you get a 15 yards, you're ejected, like all this crazy stuff. And you can't celebrate, all the list goes on. So I think at least they're able to take it to their own social medias and say exactly what they want to say. So yeah, back to that Eagles game. Carry on. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's perfect. And yeah, I love to see that energy too, and the personality of the players, and I do think it's fun. But I do feel bad. I see the Giants players, I completely understand what they're saying. It's bad sportsmanship to throw the game. And I think that's how a lot of people felt. But I thought it was interesting. I saw this from PFF. I'm going to go ahead and play it. But they were doing a podcast and actually backing Doug Pederson's decision, because basically it's an unspoken rule in the NFL, to throw a game like that. So there's actually no precedent or punishment for it specifically. So we don't know what effect this is going to have on the NFL, if other teams will start doing this, but the Eagles kind of had an advantage because they were the first to do it. So
I'm actually okay with it. It sucks because the NFL messed up by not considering this possibility.
I understand wanting to put a game on Sunday Night Football, but you know the risk. And here's the thing. There's nothing the league can do short of telling Doug Pederson, hey, please play out the string here. And they probably didn't. They probably just thought like there was, unwritten rules. We talked about this with Steve Kornacki when he was on here. Unwritten rules, the first person that breaks them has a huge...
And so what he was continuing to say was that the first person to break them has an advantage. I do want to apologize, y'all. I understand that we're having audio issues, and I'm really not sure what to do about it. I might just take my earbuds out, and we'll just hope that works.
Just try that. We're all from home. We should understand that the problems are going to continue no matter what. So, like, I turned my camera off because my laptop died. What a life. But to follow up with that commentary, I don't agree with the way the Eagles handled the entire game. And I was watching Pederson's post-game interview, and he said that he felt that Nate was able to get it done and the entire season didn't depend on this game alone, which is true. It's not a lie. We all knew Carson Wentz was falling down the hill early in the season, and Jalen Hurts was put in to assist with that. But to take away your first-round draft pick to play your third-string QB because ... like, you're lying. We know the reasoning why you did it. And when I watched Zach Ertz say that he had stayed on the field till 1 a.m, like I said, back when the Jets had been losing and they finally won a game, none of these players go out there with the intention of losing based upon what management thinks is right? They're putting their lives, their bodies, their physical daily routine out there because this is their job. This is what they love to do. And Pederson, just like the Jets defensive coordinator or the Jets team, the defensive coordinator, when he let them know that they're going to lose this game in order to get that first round draft pick, it was like, you know what? I don't think Pederson should have his job, and that's a hot take coming from Ashmere. I think you're muted. Hey, I can't hear you. Can you hear me, Aryanna? We're having like the best Tuesday of 2020.
Okay, well, I'm hearing good audio on my end. I apologize.
No, you're good. Now you're good.
Okay, but what I was saying was going off of your point. Sorry about that. But
we need to take a break, okay? 2-second break, please, because we just had a lot of shit go down in 2 seconds.
Commercial break, everyone.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, but no, just going off of what you're saying, I do agree that Doug Pederson made a decision that maybe it would have been in line with what management wanted, and I was hearing this actually on Pat McAfee, but he was talking about incentives, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But essentially, coaches saying, "Oh, I'm on your side. I'm on your side." And they're on the side of the players, but then they make decisions that are in line with what management wants. And for incentives, that would mean, hey, I want you to get that bonus, but management may not want to pay that bonus. So the coach might make decisions to not pay out so the player would avoid reaching that milestone, is my point. So here, Doug Pederson made a decision where, the organization gets a better draft pick, but at what cost? Now this kind of, I guess, puts a stain on the reputation of the players, and then you're losing respect from fellow NFL players. Why I think it's funny, because I'm a little bit surprised that Eli said this is why we don't like the Eagles, and it's funny and edgy. And I think it's hilarious that Fletcher replied, like, we don't like you either, because we see that thing, we see that between fans all the time. But I do think, unfortunately, this is just something that ultimately hurts the players, and it hurts the sportsmanship of the game. And the NFL definitely has to figure out a way to discourage it.
Totally. You need to be punished for these actions. You can't just willingly give up a game because you want to get the next best quarterback. You already have a really good one, okay? Why don't you utilize him, have him learn the game and how to win in these precious situations, whether they were going to go to the postseason or not. Nobody wants to go out there and lose. It's like my mantra. I'm going to tattoo that on my forehead. Like, I just think it's like the running slogan of this year. Nobody went out there to lose, so.
Yeah, and we saw that with the Jets, right? I mean, the fans said, why'd the Jets lose? But it's because the players want to win ultimately. And luckily we did see a lot of players make the playoffs this week, and they're very excited. Some teams for the first time in over a decade. So the Browns beat the Steelers, and they were able to make the playoffs, even though they just lost to the Jets last week. So they're in, and it's their first time since 2002. We're happy for them. Go Browns, you know. So yeah, we love to see teams succeed, and it, you know, means parity in the NFL, so that's good. The Dolphins, unfortunately, did miss the playoffs because they were blown out by the Bills, but that means that the Colts made the playoffs. So good for the Colts, good for the Browns. And then the biggest game that had playoff implications, I feel, was this Cardinals-Rams game in the NFC West. So if the Cardinals lost, which they did, then the Bears were able to make the playoffs, even though they lost to the Packers. But if the Cardinals had won, the Bears wouldn't have gotten in. And it's just a game, and the Rams, I guess, would have gotten in either way, win or lose. But it's an interesting example as to how complicated these end-of-season games can be when it comes to making the playoffs, right?
Mm-hmm. The wild card weekend is literally a wild card.
Yeah, and we're coming up. This weekend is Super Wild Card Weekend. And part of that is actually because, as we've discussed before, rather than having 6 playoff teams, the NFL is going to have 7 this year. More TV, you know, viewership and ratings. It's all about money, y'all. But hey, as NFL, we're happy. And that means that more teams get in. So, yeah, what were you thinking about? Like, I guess there was so much on the line for this specific game, right?
For the Browns game or the Cardinals game?
For the Cardinals game.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyler Murray has this tendency to do really well in the beginning of the season, and then it kind of disappears the way that the team is playing, the chemistry, and the other teams just learn their scheme, and that is for Kyler to rush the ball more because he can't get the ball down the field, and they stop him at that point. And so that made me kind of mad because I've been rooting for Kyler all year. I think I'm always going to root for him. I think he's like low-key an underdog quarterback. I don't know if that makes sense because he's usually in like the top 20 ratings, but I think because that he's always like struggling to fight to maintain his importance among the other talked about quarterbacks. I think that's why I'm always rooting for him. And this game could have gone in their favor, but he did get injured, came out for a little bit. Rams D did what they did and dominated. And so hats off to them. I can't really root for the West, but I think for so much to lie on one game, like you said, the Bears made the playoffs simply because the Cardinals had lost. I think that is, I think that just should fuel the Cardinals for next year. And Kyler will be fine. It's only his 3rd season.
Yeah, and he's already done incredible things, but this is actually something that we're both mad about, a little bit because, even though I cover the Seahawks, I like seeing how far the Cardinals have come. So Cardinals didn't make the playoffs. Ashmere, are you mad about it?
Yeah, I was. But after I saw that performance, I wasn't, because I didn't want them to get beat again by the Rams again and it just be embarrassing. Kind of what I'm worried about for the Browns versus Steelers game. Is Baker going to rise above the ashes, or is he going to get dominated by this amazing Steelers defense? So,
Yeah, that's a lot of tough games back to back, actually. Pull up the playoff slate in a second here, but there's some teams where it's teams they just played within their division, and that's their first playoff opponent. So it's actually a really tough path into the playoffs. But I do, before we get there, I want to get into something that I actually loved from this week. So
what did you love, Aryanna?
So I loved that a lot of NFL players got paid this week. So the interesting thing, a lot of players actually have certain clauses written in their contracts that if they reach certain milestones, they'll get huge bonuses, big paydays. So week 17 is a big week to make that happen. So here are a few of the incentives that were reached. So these players who got paid: David Moore, Antonio Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, Tyler Lockett, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Parker, Tom Brady, Leonard Floyd. And there's so many more. This is just a few of them. But I mean, look, hundreds of thousands of dollars, Tom Brady, over $1 million, okay? And I love the camaraderie here, actually, because it was a lot of quarterbacks that tried to make this happen for their players. So here's an example. Russell Wilson confirmed that the pop pass to David Moore on the second to last play was so he could get his incentive. So Wilson knew about this, and he was going to kneel, but he changed the call in the huddle. And I love that. So just one little change, getting it to his receiver, makes such a huge difference for that receiver and his family, and just, has all these far-reaching effects. And the same thing happened with the Bucs. So that pop pass to Antonio.
I didn't care about this, but yeah.
Well, I think it's nice that, like, it's, as I said, a camaraderie, and your teammate is working with you, trying to help you get paid. And so I love to see players supporting each other. So that's something that
I said he was mentally unstable. It's like, being
on the Bucs, okay? Let people live. No, we of course want things to be sorted for Antonio Brown, and whatever he has done or hasn't done, we want the truth to come to light. But ultimately, if someone is trying to be their best selves, I believe in that. So Antonio, just please keep being good, and
or don't.
Or don't, and get kicked out of the playoffs. But this is something that we love from this week. But we're going to move on to talk about what those playoffs are going to look like. So here's the full picture. I apologize that our logo is cutting off the Rams a little bit. But so these are the first few matchups that we're going to see this week. So we have the Browns against the Steelers, which they just played. Then we have the Colts, the Bills, the Ravens, the Titans. We have Kansas City with a bye, which is a huge luxury. And Green Bay also has a bye. We have the Bucs playing the Washington football team, the Saints playing the Bears, and the Seattle Seahawks playing the LA Rams. So what are you thinking about this playoff picture?
Like my predictions?
Yeah, throw out a few predictions out there.
I predict the Steelers to come back and win because Ben is on a redemption season. I think the Bills are going to win. And wait, can you pop up that graphic again?
Pop it back up.
Yeah, I'm picking Bills, slight win, like 3 points, 6 points if possible. The Titans-Ravens game, I love how it's a nice little redemption game, back-to-back years coming in hot. And last year, the Ravens, I'm sure there's going to be choke emojis all over the world. But I think the Titans will come back and do it again because Tannehill has 3 very strong offensive players, and they're going to put it away. Seattle, Bucs, Saints. All right, your turn.
Honestly, I really have to agree with you there. I feel like Steelers and Bills are such strong teams. Yeah, I do expect the Titans to beat the Ravens again. Lamar Jackson actually has a problem with coming back in games. So if the Titans can get the first half lead in that game, I feel like it's over. I am pulling for the Seahawks over the Rams, especially since Jared Goff might still be out this week. He's not expected to come back.
So we're 6-6 on this.
Yeah, and then I'm sorry, our guest last week, Pablo, I'm glad that his Bears team did make the playoffs, but I do think the Saints will win. I think they're the stronger team, although they've been battling their own injuries, but they'll have Kamara in this playoff game, which is something to get into. And then, I picked the Bucs over the Washington football team, although I think that one will be definitely competitive. We're going to get into that. So, it's a lot going on. And as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it on the broadcast, but I'm wearing creamsicle colors a little bit for the Bucs. As y'all may know, I'm a little bit of a Brady fan, but I'm actually wearing it because
a lot of a Brady fan.
We got to have that debate sometime. I just want to build, why we love Tom Brady, why we hate him. We'd love for y'all to chime in, but our guest this week is actually the editor of AllBucs. And so we're going to bring on Zach Goodall, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about the Bucs and their first playoff berth in quite some time. So hi, Zach. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. I really appreciate y'all having me.
We appreciate you coming through when we've had all these technical difficulties because we've never had a show where my camera dropped, her audio dropped. We're like...
And we're here. That's all that matters. We made it.
So how have you been feeling with the Bucs throughout this season? And, what are some advantages and disadvantages of playing the Washington football team?
So I actually started covering the Bucs about halfway through the season.
Okay.
Through a promotion from work, it allowed me to take on a second team, get back into the NFL. So I've seen the Bucs since that cold streak, I guess, really started with Brady, and he had all the deep passes that he was missing, and things weren't really clicking. So I got to experience the lows of this season as my first impression. And the team has absolutely changed since then. It's a very hot team coming into the playoffs offensively. Defensively, I don't even want to say they've taken a step back because they've been dealing with the injuries. They've had several guys get placed on the COVID list last week, which could potentially put a bit of a damper on the playoffs, at least looking towards the status of Devin White and perhaps other players on that defense as well. It's fair to say that from inside and outside factors, the Bucs defense has taken a bit of a step back from a really good start to the year, but they've more than made up for it with what they've shown offensively, and that's really what everyone's going to have their eyes on come Saturday.
Okay, so taking on Washington football team could be one of the top-ranked defenses right now. What are some advantages and disadvantages for this matchup?
I mean, I'll start with the disadvantages because you mentioned it. It's such a fierce defensive line and pass rush that teams are going to have to score, and Washington, except for a couple games recently, just hasn't proven capable to do that all season long. So teams will have to score to keep up with the Bucs. But if you want to find a way to stay in the game beyond that, you better have a really great pass rush. There are some weak spots on Tampa Bay's offensive line, although it's a pretty good unit when it's all said and done. But this is one of those pass rushes that can absolutely change that. They've got guys where they're deep at every position. They've got legitimate depth at every position in their pass rush. They can blitz. They can make Brady uncomfortable. And when he's thrown 12 touchdowns in the past 4 games, you got to do that.
Yeah, I agree. So do you think the Bucs will come out on top? I mean, we both just said that they will, but I'm going to ask the Bucs writer here. Do you think they'll win this game?
I think they should. I don't know how deep of a run this team can make if they're going to be tested. We haven't really seen them face an offense like they did when they were struggling. I mean, the Chiefs and the Rams even gave them some fits with a lot of up-tempo stuff to start games that really the Bucs just weren't able to slow down, and on top of that, weren't able to match at that point. And we know that as the playoffs go on, they'll face much better offenses than Washington if they win this game. But as of now, you really do need to put up those points to stand a chance, and I don't see Washington replicating that.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so going out, you mentioned like this team kind of having a bit of a cold streak. So, and I feel like the Bucs have gotten, especially in the media, a lot of criticism for Brady having these interceptions and all these sacks and everything. We have to remember that this is a quarterback in a completely new system. And I feel like the past few games we've seen Brady really come into his own, as I would say, vintage Brady, right? And we've seen such a shift in the offense. So do you think that this is a bit of a clash between Arians, risk it, no biscuit, and trying to make Brady do that? In the past few games, he gives Brady the reins and says, okay, do your thing. And it works.
Yeah, I know you use the word clash, and I don't want to throw you under the bus, but I know everyone was kind of using that, right? At one point it was, are they on the same page?
Yeah.
No, I mean, it was such a unique offseason. It was a huge change for a 20-year veteran who's played with one team. It's a quarterback better than Bruce Arians has ever coached in his life. It was definitely going to take time. There were some really nice early returns, but they were always going to have to iron out some issues, right? It happens no matter what. And I think that it's truly been Brady getting comfortable. When I first got here, I didn't think Brady was playing his best ball. Yeah. There were issues with what was getting called in terms of some playmaking decisions, some strategy coming out in the first half, and there wasn't much balance. There wasn't much adjustment as to what needed to be done with the play calling. And at that point, you can understand the blame going on Arians and everything, but at the end of the day, it is Tom Brady as well, and they knew that they have given him total control of the offense. He can call what he needs to. And it got him into his own funk that he's gotten out of. And now you look at it, I think his arm strength has really developed again as the year's gone on. He's gotten more comfortable with the receivers in the offense, with what Bruce Arians tends to want at being an aggressive, vertically minded coach. It did take that time for them to break that cold streak. And when they did, we've seen it's been pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually just looking, and I love this stat. But apparently Brady threw for 40 touchdowns and then had 3 rushing touchdowns. So 43 touchdowns for the 43-year-old quarterback, just, to make it all that much of a fairy tale story, right? But but I think that's hilarious. But Yeah, speaking of, I know that the media has kind of been picking on, like, they're doing it before everyone's eyes, right? They're ironing out this new offense and everything. But I think that there were some quotes that I guess I'm a little bit used to, tight-lipped Bill Belichick in press conferences, but I feel like Arians is definitely more outspoken. And there were some quotes this season that kind of surprised me a little bit. So I want to ask you, as someone who covers the Bucs, which moment or quote kind of surprised you the most from Arians?
I feel like he's done a good job of not letting things get too crazy in terms of his quotes. He's not stepped too far out of people's comfort zones like he's known for doing. But that's exactly it. The one where he was blunt. He let everyone know that he thought it was Tom that had messed up a couple things. And the thing with Tom is people wondered, how will a guy with, as many rings that he could fit on all 5 fingers and +1, how would he respond to that? And no one really expected him to take the high road. And he did. He took blame for it. He accepted it himself. He continues to. They won the Atlanta game. No, I'm sorry. They won the Detroit game. They sealed their playoff spot. And the first thing he said was, I was playing poorly coming into this. And I've seemingly, started to put things together, but I only got a half to play today. I've got more that I want to do as we prepare for the playoffs. And I really appreciated that. He's a quarterback that doesn't really need to be saying anything of the sort like that at this point in his career. And with that, ever since then, and really ever since those comments with Arians, a fire was lit. And it's been a pretty good one.
Yeah, I mean, we have to say that after these comments, as you said, a fire is lit and this offense is back and heading into the playoffs, things feel really strong. But as you kind of mentioned, I'm a little bit nervous because this is one of the top defenses in the NFL. Everyone has been saying that. But unfortunately, Devin White is going, and because of the playoff scheduling, but because of when they play, Devin White is going to be out for this game. So I want to ask you, how big of an impact does that have for this game? And do you think that Devin White was snubbed a Pro Bowl nod?
Ooh, I think so. Personally, I think Lavonte David's done a really great job of kind of being a glue in the middle of the defense for Tampa Bay, and that's helped Devin White a ton. With that being said, who's matching his production beyond just tackles? I mean, in everything he's doing, he's producing one way or another. Even if it's because of the help that he's got, he's doing stuff that a lot of other linebackers aren't doing. And I understand why there's a huge push after the fact, especially as him being snubbed. Sorry, could you repeat the first part of that?
Oh, I apologize. It was just a whole big love on Devin White thing. But how big of an impact is he going to have that because he's out?
Yeah. They certainly took a step back at linebacker without him. Kevin Minter, he's a vet. That's really about it. He just doesn't have the same playmaking ability, and they really do depend on his speed, White's ability to fill gaps, especially in the run game, and create big plays in the backfield. And Minter he doesn't have that. He's just got the knowledge of the defense that they do trust, and they want on the field in a pinch like that. Fortunately, with the offense they're facing, you would think that it won't be the end of the world, especially when you consider they're probably going to be getting Shaq Barrett back on the edge. They might be able to get Steve McClendon back, the defensive tackle. Those guys went on the COVID list at the same time. We're going to have to see because they weren't at practice today with the Bucs. But I believe the expectation is at least Barrett will be cleared, bearing some of the positive tests that come up along the way. But it's coming soon. And those two big additions should help a lot, at least with the idea that White probably won't be there.
Right. And so you mentioned Lavonte David and Shaq Barrett, two names of two fantastic football players that honestly don't get enough credit. So my last question for you is, who is the most underrated Bucs player on the team?
Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one because you could go a couple different ways with this.
You can maybe list top 3.
No, that's too nice.
I don't know. There's a lot of good players that don't get
this. This isn't a trick question. It's a
I think I'm going to go with Chris Godwin just because of how deep that wide receiver room is. And he gets plenty of attention himself. But when you've got Mike Evans, when you've got Antonio Brown for his on the field, for his off the field, all the headlines that can cause. Scotty Miller even has been a pretty good player for the Bucs. Rob Gronkowski's found his groove after being retired for a year. It took him a little bit to get into it, but he finally did it. To where, Chris Godwin, he doesn't have the best statistical year of his career. He dealt with an injury, and I think he only missed one game the rest of the games while he was dealing with a broken finger had like tacks and pins in his finger, still catching footballs. And you won't ever hear a word of complaint about him. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they've got some cap issues and they've got players to bring back, Godwin being one.
Mm-hmm.
I figure if they put a franchise tag on him, you won't hear a single word out of his camp saying someone's frustrated or they would prefer the long-term deal and won't sign. He gives everything. He's an effort guy. He's someone you want in your locker room. And on top of that, he makes plays. And this year, especially, we've just kind of forgotten about that.
Yeah, I love it. Great answer.
Thank you.
I think Godwin and Tom Brady are like magnetic on the field. So I think your answer is exactly what I was thinking because I think they have that connection. But I'm asking both of you now. I'm going to start. Zach can answer first. Who would you rather take on once the Bucs win, Seattle or the Rams?
Ooh, well, I mean, last time Tampa Bay and the Rams played, it was a pretty ugly game for Tampa Bay when it was all said and done. I wouldn't exactly bank on a repeat performance because we've seen the growth from the Bucs offense at this point, but everything that can cause the Bucs problems happened in that game. And especially it starts with the great defense that the Rams do bring to the table. You pair star talents like Aaron Donald, like Jalen Ramsey. It's tough. And for an offense like this, you never want to go against guys like that because that's when you can really start to fear it a little bit. And Donald didn't have a really highly productive game against the Bucs, but he held his own. He commanded double teams. He opened up things for other players. That's just what he's so good at. In Seattle, they've got some players on defense. They've grown throughout the year after a rough start defensively. But at the end of the day, I'd still take that Rams defense at this point, and that's kind of what scares me.
So you'd rather play Seattle. Okay, Aryanna?
Yeah, yes.
That's your people. Your turn.
Yeah, so I think similarly, I think that, especially seeing the game, we did get an idea of how the Bucs would play the Rams when they played earlier this year, and Aaron Donald is such a force. So I'd be nervous to just go against him in the playoffs, and Brady doesn't have the best track record against Aaron Donald, but in the Super Bowl, he was able to evade him, which really frustrated Donald, which is kind of funny. But anyway, but yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about this Rams defense. They are missing Goff, and I don't know if they will be at that point. But Seattle has gotten a lot stronger this year, and I feel that offensively, going against Brady, going toe-to-toe with Wilson is definitely a little bit scary. So it's pretty close, but I don't know. I don't really know that I would want to face Seattle. I guess also covering them and seeing Jamal Adams and seeing how strong this defense has gotten. So maybe I would take the Rams if I had to,
Ooh, spicy. That's a spicy answer.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it, especially
Seattle. I would rather
especially with the questions about Jared Goff. I think that's a great point as well.
Yeah.
And like I was saying earlier, you got to match points, right? If there's an offense out there that can match points in the playoffs, Seattle's definitely one of them.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf are just like the strongest, I feel like.
You've got Godwin and possibly Evans. So it's like a match of wide receivers.
Yeah. So that would actually be really fun to see. But yeah, so I don't think that Seattle, obviously, I don't know that they can get the same. I mean, there's no one like Aaron Donald, right? And you mentioned Jalen Ramsey. I mean, he's fantastic. So it's tough. But yeah, if you bring in the offensive element as well, it could go either way. Both tough NFC US teams.
For sure.
Asking you, I'd rather see the Raiders play. Actually, just kidding. They didn't make it anywhere. So
maybe next year.
Yeah.
There's always next year. I grew up a Jaguars fan. That's what I told myself by every October.
Oh, so how are you feeling this year?
Hey, Trevor Lawrence. That's all I got to say.
Oh,
happy day.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll do a pre-draft or a pre-draft thing, and we'll ask you, since you're the first round pick, who you'd rather have and what you'd think for the team. And we'll do that. I think that'll be fun.
Oh,
that'd be great.
Yeah, maybe we could get 12 different for each, or I don't know, we'll just get a bunch of people in for
we'll get the bottom teams to talk about the way they could change for 2021.
Oh yeah. Manifest better things, right?
Exactly.
I say we do a full first round mock draft. We all split up the teams.
Okay.
We could have some fun with that.
Yeah. Okay, everyone, expect a mock draft from the three of us for sure.
I dig it.
Yeah. Well, we love it. But yeah. Oh, Tom Brady, the GOAT. Sorry, we have that comment. I just have to add it because I totally agree. Zach, are you a Tom Brady fan?
I'm neither here nor there. I feel like I've got to give that answer.
Man, weren't you listening?
I have to give that answer, right? From covering him. I will say, this wasn't Tom's fault, but Miles Jack wasn't down back in 2017. That's all I have to say on the topic.
Okay. On that note, I think thank you so much for joining us, Zach. It's been fun. It's fun to talk about a team that's doing well and can carry on for the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. I'm sure we'll definitely do the mock drafts. I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh yeah, we'll see you again soon.
Yeah,
for sure.
Thank you so much, Zach.
Thank you.
All right, well, that's our show. But yeah, we're definitely looking forward to this super wild card weekend. We have a lot to look forward to this Bucs game. We don't know how it'll do, but thank you again for joining us. And
wait, one thing, we do have another show. Don't forget.
We do have another show
on Thursday.
We do have another show, and we have to plug that. We have another show with Pop Dust. We just spoke today with the amazing Jordan, and so we're actually just going to have a fun little NFL podcast this Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So catch us then. But yeah.
And we're actually going to be the guests. We are not the hosts.
We are the guests. We're actually the NFL analysts.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we're going to be doing that with Pop Dust, and we're super excited. Love bringing sports content to the brand. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, Zach. And we'll see y'all soon. Enjoy this wild card weekend.